Welcome to this session of the PlantPure Summit 2016, co-sponsored by PlantPureFoods.com. Our guest is Corey Howard, MD. Dr. Howard was initially double board certified in internal medicine and digestive diseases and nutrition. Founder and director of Physicians Life Centers in Naples, Florida, he brings this multidimensional expertise to his clients, offering programs designed to help people live a better life. Welcome to the summit, Dr.
Thank you.
Tell us about your early career as a doctor.
All right. Well, I actually started off in psychiatry at Long Island Jewish Medical Center, which is a campus for the Albert Einstein School of Medicine. And it was during my internship year that I was exposed to internal medicine and gastroenterology in particular. And I decided after that year that I would switch and go back to where I began my training in Tampa, Florida, at the University of South Florida, and pursue internal medicine. I was the chief resident of medicine, followed by a fellowship in gastroenterology, and then I jumped into solo practice. And I can tell you that very long hours of working and being in the hospital all the time gave me a very little time to devote towards my own personal health.
Speaking of which, what sort of health problems did you develop in your early career?
It took about 10 years before I really found myself burned out a bit and overweight and looking for, just a better way to help my family, help myself, and really look for something different that I could use to help patients.
So how did you tackle your health problems?
The funny thing is, so it really started in like 2005. Where I was mountain biking in Park City, Utah. Now, if you could call it that for me at the time, I wasn't really like an Uber mountain biker, but I was with my wife and my very, very good friend. And I just couldn't keep up. I was up in those mountains, beautiful place. And I just found myself just grossly out of shape and just unable to do what I wanted to do. And so it was at that time I just made a decision. I just said, you know what, enough. And that was the day. It was like, bam, that's it. I'm done. And I have a picture actually of that moment in time, which is amazing. But during that same kind of weekend, we had a couple of friends of ours that said they were going to do a triathlon. And I don't know. I mean, I must have lived under a rock because I didn't know really what that entailed. But they said it's when you swim and you bike and you run. And the normal question would be at the same time. And they said, yeah. So I was like, okay, let me think about this. I don't own a bicycle. I can't run 1 mile and I don't know how to swim. I could swim to not drown, but like I didn't really know how to swim for racing kind of swimming. And even though I grew up in New York City, I really didn't like crowds that much. So I figured that would accomplish a lot of things. I could get over a lot of my little issues. And so within 2 months, I changed my whole life. And I started to train and do things. And I did my first race. And my first race was like 400 meters, which is about a quarter of a mile, swim, a 10-mile bike ride, and a 2.5 mile run. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I really did this. But I was really hooked. And little did I know that 4 years later, I would be on the starting line of Ironman Florida, and not to just finish, but to compete. And during that period of time, I took all of the information regarding not only training, but really learning about nutrition and fitness. And I started to apply it directly into my patients. And that was really the stepping stone of my practice today.
So when and why did you adopt a plant-based diet?
Well, initially, in medicine, medical school, they don't teach you anything. And that is even true today, where they really don't give you enough of a strong foundation of what healthy living really is, what the definition of health really is. Right now, health in medical school is still the absence of disease, where we really know it's about nutrition and fitness and sleep and stress and environmental toxins and things like that. But about 5 or 6 years ago, I met Dr. Scott Stoll, and we worked on a project together. And it became clear that a whole food, mostly plant-based diet with very little processing was really the way to go. And that's been substantiated in the literature multiple times by a variety of people, including Dr. Katz. I do have some caveats about that in absorption and things like that related to my specialty. But for the most part, it was really at that time that I said, you know what, that's got to be the way to go. And that's what I've been promoting ever since.
What kind of changes did you notice in yourself after adopting a plant-based diet?
Well, the first thing was I had to know how to do it. So I went ahead and got certified at the Ruby School in plant-based nutrition, plant-based cooking, and did that 6-month course, which is a professional-based course that really changed my paradigm on how to eat better and incorporate foods, not just as a salad or a saute, but just really incorporating things. And that's probably the main thing that changed it for me. Now, the changes that I feel, I originally had lost pretty near 50 pounds from the time that I started training for triathlon to when I raced. And then since then, which was back 2009, I've had some additional changes and things like that, and kind of reached my more natural body weight that is manageable when I'm not, training 20 hours a week. Because most people can't do that. So I have a sustainable lifestyle that really affords me the ability to eat, everything I really want.
So in your opinion, what are some of the main problems with our healthcare system today?
Well, we could spend an hour talking about the problems with our healthcare system. And I'm sure that people out there will hear this time and time again, but we obviously have a reactionary disease-based system. That's the real problem. The new rules that are out there, which I think are supposed to have been meant to make some changes, really just make it worse, because there's no time or very little time for physicians and practitioners to really spend with their patients. We have some of the best trained physicians in the entire world, but yet some of the worst outcomes in a variety of areas. And I think that what we really need to do is be much more proactive. We need to work with people. We need to help them out to find reasons that they want to be healthy. I think that's the core element that's missing, is finding out why you even want to be healthy. We can talk about diets, we can talk about exercise and all these other things, but at the core, why is it that you want to be healthy? That's what I focus on. Our system doesn't support talking about that quite yet, but I think in the near future, it probably will.
So when and why did you decide to start Physicians Life Centers?
Yeah, so in 2007 is when I started the center itself, but it really wasn't until a couple of years ago that I shifted it to really focus on lifestyle medicine, focus on prevention, focus on functional medicine, not just looking at the disease as a big picture, but looking at the metabolic reasons why things occur. And time again, it came out that it was really about what you put in your body. The reality is that you have, 37 trillion cells in our body with thousands of reactions occurring every second. The best we can do is to give the substrate, which is the food, the nutrients, to get these reactions to work, and we can talk about it. But in my practice, my Physicians Life Centers, I wanted something really different. I wanted something that would show people that they can do it too. So I built a studio that's a Zen yoga studio that with a kitchen. I can do seminars in the office for up to 35 people. And it's really much more of a learning center than it is just a standard office. And I think that's what defines it as an entity today.
Do you stress plant-based nutrition in your program?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my kitchen is like an episode where I can pull everything out of the kitchen, set it up for people and show them, because I don't think that people need to know how to cook another piece of meat or focus on that, which is where so many people spend their time, is just learning how to cook these other things, where they should be spending their time finding out what high nutrient density really looks like. The kind of stuff that's could be considered nutritional compounding, where the kinds of foods that you eat can literally change how your cells express themselves, how the body really can help heal itself. And I think that's really the way to go.
So what type of patients do you see at your center?
I see I see all kinds of patients, everything from diabetes to Parkinson's disease to people who are just really interested in their health. I have one main caveat in my practice, and that is that you have to be interested in your health. I really don't see that I have the time to take care of people who aren't interested in their health. They're just interested in the current healthcare system of, let me have another pill or fill my prescriptions for another year. And I don't want to do any of the things that you want me to do in between. And that's probably the main thing right there.
So do you have any especially dramatic patient turnaround stories that you could share with us?
I think we all have good stories like that. And most recently, I have two people that really exemplify what you can do. One was a woman who actually has Parkinson's disease. I just mentioned Parkinson's, but she has Parkinson's, and mostly the kind that gives you this tremor of your hand. And she was on medications before she came to see me. She really didn't know what to do, and just asked, is there anything else that I can do? So we discussed nutrition, we discussed plant-based eating, we discussed not only nutrition in terms of just for sustenance, but really how it might be able to improve neurologic function and things like that. And so you have to really go into the literature to find out, what's right, what's wrong, because you don't want to just say, well, yeah, just do this and it'll work, because we don't have all the data. But there are some principles, and healthy eating is one of them. Exercising, stress management, sleeping properly. And we started to work on that. I got her off her medications, and she really hasn't had any problems for over a year. She finally saw a subspecialist in Parkinson's who said, well, you're not really symptomatic, but maybe we should just put you on something just in case. She was like, okay, whatever. So we have her on a very low dose, primarily because that's the dogma in the neurologic world. But this woman is incredible. She exercises. She has a personal trainer. She helps other people, and she's a remarkable individual. I will say one other person, which I think is really important, is I had a woman in her 40s, with adult onset type 1 diabetes. So this is the kind of diabetes that requires insulin in adulthood. It's not that common to happen. And she presented to me. She couldn't get into an endocrinologist. They were waiting. She got really sick, and she came in, and her numbers were crazy. Within a very short period of time, I had really focused on her diet, nutrition, used some innovative tools to help track what she was doing. The problem was that she had an eating disorder as a child, as a teenager. And so when you start talking about food, it would kind of have problems. And so we worked through that. And I think the innovative nature of my practice, which is communication, number one, texting, email, phone calls, without just having to make an appointment, come on in, which is an inhibitor for this kind of problem. And within a short period of time, I got her so finely tuned that the endocrinologist didn't even know what else to do. And then she's still doing extremely well today. So those are just two examples of people that have done exceptionally well. I also work in the corporate world where I do events related to lifestyle medicine particularly, and I designed a lifestyle-based wellness program, which wasn't a diet or an exercise program, but helping people understand the reasons why they want to be healthy. And all the surveys before and after showed that almost every participant in the program made a change in their lifestyle for the better. And that's not been shown before.
Well, that's really impressive too, to get a success rate like that. I mean, most people, do you have trouble getting compliance from your people?
Yeah, that goes to the core element that I started with, which is, why do you want to be healthy? I think that's the missing element when we're talking to people. For people that are listening to this, why do you want to be healthy? What are compelling reasons that you would like to make your life better? You want to live longer, for grandchildren, you want to see somebody get married, whatever those reasons are, you've got to write them down. This is a basic tenet. See, I believe in the success formula, and this can be applied to anything you do in your life. The success formula is where you actually allow yourself to do something as an adult that you haven't done since childhood, which is to dream. Dream of something. Dream of a better life. Dream of what you want out of life. And then use those points in your dreams to set clear goals. Now that's important, because if you don't have a goal, what are you going to do? It's like having a car and a GPS, but no destination that's set. You just go where? You go nowhere, but you have the tools. So now you set a goal and create a plan for that goal. And I've heard that, if you set a plan that isn't in alignment, then you're not going to get there. It's like, your goal is to watch a sunset, but your plan is to walk east. That doesn't work. So you have to match those two. Now comes the most critical element. Once you start to have some success in whatever the goal is, so start reaching it, you have to give yourself recognition. You have to pat yourself on the back. You have to award yourself with something. And maybe later on you want to teach somebody else to do the same thing, but at the core element is giving yourself recognition. That, I think, is one of the most key elements in helping everybody out there with their own personal success. So dreaming, goal setting, a plan that's reasonable, and then recognizing what you're doing and giving yourself a pat on the back, because you'll take steps backwards. I know in my life, I've taken step backwards. Have I been, an elite athlete this whole time? No. I've had injuries where, my back hurts, and I, like everybody else out there, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm just going to take off some more time. And then you put on some weight and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And starve myself or not. Or this is when you have a strong principle of how you should eat and what you should eat, and slowly begin to integrate it again. Anybody out there that just says, hey, listen, and I know this is a little bit off from where we started, but that says, look, you have to do this. If you don't do this, you're going to die. Scare tactics, they don't work. Or you say, this is all the things you should do, but yet somebody who's eating not well can't do it. It isolates them and tells them that they can't. I like a one more, one less approach. You add a little bit more, you take a little bit away, and you build that over time so that you help them find the successes that I just talked about, recognize these things, and by the end of the time, 2, 3, 4, 6 months, however long it takes, they start to see the benefits. Now, obviously, there's plenty of data that says if you eat a whole food plant-based diet, you're going to see benefits in a very short period of time in chemistries. But, people want like now, and that's one thing. But for what's sustainable, I think is the key. And so we have to work towards that.
So did you apply some of those same principles about goal setting and having a plan and things like that to yourself when you decided to become serious as a triathlete?
Oh, absolutely. Without goals, you can't go anywhere. So for me, and I can't speak for what other people do, I read everything, every book, every seminar I could attend to really help me understand it. Because when you do something like an Ironman Triathlon, which is a 2.4 mile open water swim, 112-mile bike ride, and then a full marathon, you want to be prepared for that. Every step of the way, you want to know what to expect. You want to put in the time, the effort, and the training to do it. And the only way you can do it is to understand it. By understanding it, it empowers you to say, okay, I'm not the only person that's going to have a setback. I'm going to have a bad day, a bad training day, a bad eating day, but tomorrow is another day, and we'll just make it better, and you move forward.
So what was your first full triathlon like?
So a full triathlon, meaning an Ironman, which is, very small percentage of the entire world does that kind of event. So that was a really long day, basically. It was almost 12 hours. I did it in just under 12 hours, which is pretty good. And I had some setbacks. My contact fell out on the bike. So I had 70 miles of one eye contact, which made me a little nauseous by the time I got into the transition area. But it was one of the most fun days I ever had. The camaraderie of people. And I'll tell you one little thing. So the swim occurs at sunrise. And so you start to swim, 2,000 people or almost 3,000 people jump in the water. And we get out to the first buoy, which is way out there, obviously, because it's a 2.5 mile swim. And you get out there and the waves are going up and down and people are actually talking. I don't know if I was dreaming this, but I think people were talking, and it was just a surrealistic kind of event. But the day itself was amazing. And I wouldn't say it's something everybody should do, but pushing yourself to the absolute limit of what you think you can do realizes that you can always do a little bit better. It's the difference between good and great. It's just a little bit better and you can get there.
So has that accomplishment influenced the way you practice medicine?
Oh, most definitely. Because I believe anything is possible. I believe there is greatness within every single one of us. You can say the triathlete in us. I use triathlon only as a metaphor because it embodies so many different things at the same time. But the reality is every single person out there has the ability to achieve greatness. And there's lots of stories about that and Hindu stories and things. But I believe that just looking inside of yourself, you can find it. So
how do you help empower your patients to take responsibility for their health?
Yeah. So, obviously the first thing is, because that's a great question, right? That's the bazillion-dollar question. How do you do this? I think it starts with helping them understand why they want to be healthy. Again, back to what I was talking about. If they really don't want to, they're not going to. It's just how it goes. I mean, I hate to be trite about it, but there is a population of people, they just don't want to do it. But for those that do, and I hope that's the vast majority of people out there, we can help them. And you have to start by listening, really listening from your heart, talking to them about what it is that they have in their lives. Talk about the basic human needs, the needs for significance, the need for love and connection. These kinds of things can really help you, and then help them find compelling reasons, again, why they want to be healthy. Once we get that down, then we need to order the appropriate labs. We need to make sure that they have the kind of plan that helps them. One of the things that I don't do is I don't give them a 5-day diet list. There's a million of those out there. I point them in the direction so that they can make choices, because if you want something that's sustainable, they're going to need to have choices, especially if they're going out to eat and things like that. So I'm not hardcore about that, but I am hardcore about helping them understand why they would want to make one choice over another. And I think that's what's going to help them the most.
So tell us about your inspirational speaking and your activities as a mentor.
Well, I something that I love to do, being a mentor. I mean, I would love to be out there and teaching, especially to young physicians and medical students, to help guide them in the right direction, and that I feel, not just the academic direction that's currently being promoted primarily. But on stage, I give 100% of who I am. I can always show you my credentials, but they really don't define who I am. They got me to the stage, but I have to dig deep down into that to really find ways to connect to each person. At times, I'm very raw and unfiltered, and I use that to connect with people and to find out ways to help them. I like to read the audience, and basically I say I look at like this much information, and I only use a tiny little bit at any moment in time and can vary it. So I'm not just PowerPoint driven, but really driven by the emotion of the group very frequently.
So do you feel, do you see young doctors being more open to this type of medicine now than before? Are things changing?
Slowly, but yes, they are. I mean, there's definitely programs in the United States that have a strong focus on prevention and looking at it, but I would like to have them looking at nutrition, plant-based nutrition, and what you can get from the ground and what's natural in really helping disease, prevent and reverse disease. And I don't think they're quite there yet. There are a few programs that have kitchens where they're going to teach students stuff, but look, when you're on your surgical rotation, working 90 hours a week or 80 hours for the legality in some states, they're going to make bad choices. And so we have to help them integrate what they want to do later on in their life into their careers early on by giving them the right kinds of foods. And it's not always available in hospital-based settings. So yes, there needs to be a lot more education and bringing speakers on that aren't just the status quo, but out of the cutting edge of what real science can do from a nutritional standpoint.
I got to tell you, I've had the pleasure of interviewing a few cardiologists in the last week or so, and they are actually now adopting this as a primary treatment for their patients. I think that's like a giant breakthrough.
Oh, for sure. How everyone doesn't automatically tell their patients that, I don't know. And there's all kinds of nuances because some of the medications they use actually inhibit the absorption of essential nutrients in your diet. So you've got to work around that. But I am glad to hear that some of the cardiologists are starting to get on board and seeing the importance of nutrition.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me, I think, especially, I mean, their main business is cracking people's chests open, and they get paid a lot of money for that, but to give somebody plant-based nutrition as a primary treatment and have them reverse their condition without having to do that, it seems like it's kind of working against their economic interests, but they're doing it, which is really cool.
Yeah, well, certainly, in that instance, cardiothoracic surgeons versus non-invasive cardiologists or cardiologists that do casts. But if they're working in concert with the other physicians, as a team, I think we can do a lot of good for patients.
So, do you feel more fulfilled as a doctor than you did earlier in your career?
I would say most definitely, but there's so much to learn. There's so much to do, and the more I learn, the more I realize the world of medicine is truly infinite. I do my very best to draw from my training and studies and vast experience as a person and as a professional, but I want to do more. I would love the opportunity to teach and train some students in areas and help them become better doctors. Help them learn to trust their instincts and bridge the gap between Eastern and Western philosophies, so that it's not just one or the other, but all one way to help people.
How do you see your practice evolving over the next 10 years or so?
Well, for me, for my practice versus the broader picture of healthcare are probably two different things. My practice, I believe that there's a need for a physician that's based in the kinds of things that I do, lifestyle, but can, pull in a lot of different areas. I would like to see, in general, though, a big, strong focus on prevention. I'd love to see the medical office of the future have a kitchen and a place that's a safe harbor where people know that their interests are what's important. I don't see it being a free system, but one that offers real value to patients that truly puts back into healthcare.
So how do you see our healthcare system evolving over the next decade or so?
Yeah, in a similar way. I think it'll be fractionated in some ways because people want what they want when they want it, kind of thing. Like the telemedicine, hey, I have this, do that, versus looking at a bigger picture, and like, for example, teaching people the power of foods in the prevention of disease, even some cancers and certainly heart disease, the biggest killer in the United States and around the world. So I think we need a much stronger focus on that, of people that bridge the gap with science and the philosophies of healthy living really meet. I think that's something that's going to happen. It does take a little bit more time. Our system won't pay for it. So I think that if people really want health, they may have to wind up doing something on their own as well.
Since you become plant-based, how far has the plant-based diet idea come in America?
Well, if you truly look at the history of plant-based diets, the government has promoted a plant-based diet from the inception of government. I had the opportunity to visit a archives exhibit specifically on food and nutrition in the United States, and it wasn't until kind of like the mid-1900s that we really took a deep nosedive from eating more whole foods, and then processing and meat consumption increased, and cheese and oils and things like that. But I think that we need to make a change. I think that we need to help as much as we possibly can. You see, one of the things today is that there are so many impressions in advertising that have changed how people view stuff. It used to be, you see things just a few times, you're like, that sounds pretty good, I might try that. Now people are exposed 40, 50, 60, hundreds of times a day on things. They become so numb to it that somebody says, yes, you should really eat your broccoli. And they're like, I've heard that before. Can you prove it to me? Until I get a heart attack. That kind of thing. So I think we're moving in the right direction, but slowly.
Okay, so where do you see the plant-based idea in 10 or 15 years? Do you think it's going to keep going?
Yeah, I think that's going to probably be much more of the mainstay, especially for sustainability, because if you look how much property or how much land it takes to grow animal-based products, cows and things like that, it takes a lot of water and it takes a lot of land versus how many people you can feed on that same amount of land in a plant-based way. And so I see us really bridging the gap between much more plant-based cuisine and much fewer and fewer animal products. Although I think it's going to be hard to get people as a population to say never to do that. But because I do believe that the absorption of amino acids in certain people could be different. So you have to help them what's sustainable and really help them move along that continuum of where they are to where they need to be, over here to here. And that's just going to take a concerted effort from a lot of people.
What makes you happiest or most satisfied about being a doctor right now?
Well, that's a really good question too, because, what makes me happy is being able to spend the time and really connect with my patients, really be able to sit here and not just talk about the medicine, but find out more about who they are, because that helps me define on what it is that they want and how we can get them there. The kind of practice I have affords me the ability to reach out to a lot more people. I love group settings. I love to be out in the public. I love to do, seminars of hundreds to thousands, if possible, and use every means necessary, either social media or other, as well as going around the country whenever possible to do these kinds of things and to help reach out and to empower you, the individual, to change in the way that you want to.
So anyway, I'm really impressed by the job you're doing, and I share your hopes and dreams for the future. So I really thank you for your time and a great presentation, and I'm sure people are going to enjoy it.
Thank you very much.
By the way, do you have a website that people can go to and find out more about you?
Yes, it is Physicians Life Centers. So physicians, plural, lifecenters.com. And you can see all the things I do, bridging the gap between everything you would want to know and more.
It's great. So thanks for watching, everyone. And we encourage you to find out more about what we're doing to help make a plant-based world at our website, plantpurenation.com. Thanks, Doctor.
Thank you.